What's up, folks? How are you? And I had a lot of people call me, contact me, message me, and ask me about what I thought regarding Luis Suárez. Look, it's complicated because obviously, if someone comes up and gives me hey, you know what, this and this, and fine, cool, it's no problem. I don't. There's nothing wrong with having a different opinion in terms of that. Why? Because, well, we weren't there. You and I weren't there. So that's what makes this all the more interesting, debatable, whatever the case may be. One will give everything, and then one will give their take in terms of this situation, because there's lots to talk about. First of all, with Marcelo Bielsa, is he, he's not in a football setting. He's not the most cheery and the most jolly or jovial type of person. He has his quirks, major quirks. There's something in his communication that seems off to people, because when he's talking to you, when he's talking to you, he tends to do a lot of things like this, and he's not looking at you straight in the eye. And when he wants to express something, he ends up analyzing things and understanding what he needs to say in order to give you the best answer possible. Now, what is the best answer possible? Well, he ends up doing a lot of that. And that, in some lines of communication with people, turns them off. Is it right? No, it's not perfect, but when he is able to express an idea, he goes above and beyond trying to express it with words. In terms of actions, he's not the easiest person to deal with in a work setting. Just ask people at Athletic Club, ask people at Olympique Marseille, ask people at many other clubs that he's been at, and he does wear his welcome out because he wants things his way and only his way. And there is one way, which is the only way, which is his way. Coming into what was a World Cup failure with Uruguay in Qatar in 2022, well, there needed to be a change. Diego Alonso wasn't going to be the coach. The players were now at a point where they were extremely influential. There needed to be changes. The system that they had for a while hadn't worked. Reason why Oscar Washington Tavares was sacked eventually during World Cup qualifying play. Diego Alonso takes over, helps them get across the finish line, but doesn't help them get out of the group stage for the first time in ages. I think it was 1978 or 1982, the last time Uruguay didn't get out of a group stage in a World Cup. It was a huge blow. And it was a mark on a generation that had given so much. Although when you start looking at it from a Copa America perspective, they, outside of the win in 2011, they hadn't done too much. They hadn't gone out of quarters. And of course, in 2016, they didn't get out of the group stage in the Centenario. So what ends up being of that generation, obviously the World Cups were overall relatively successful. The Copa America in 2011 ends up being the highlight of that generation. But at a certain point, there were a lot of, there was one article that was done in Uruguay, and all of a sudden you see a picture of a group of, the fraternity of players and how they would used to sit out and have the asados and drink mate together. Ironically, it happened to be in Barranquilla during COVID, and a whole group of players ended up getting COVID because of it. That picture, I remember it very clearly. And there were a lot of conditions that were being set, a lot of concessions that were being made. There were a lot of things that were going on with the Uruguayan national team. Of course, many were being led by Luis Suárez. So when Marcelo Bielsa takes over, and keep in mind what I said before, Marcelo Bielsa wants things done his way, which is the only way. And it's the only way that things are going to work, because if he has a series of concessions that he has to have the eventual employer offer, say, yes, sir, it shall be done, for him to go and say eventually yes. And it's fine because he from a financial standpoint, he doesn't have to work. He can go and live his life as well as he's set for life from a financial standpoint. Does he want challenges? Yes. Now, am I talking about him being a great coach or a bad coach? No, I'm just talking about him right now. And he has a certain set of principles that he wants established, and everything has to go. And yes. He negotiates every single point by himself. You can call him a great coach. You can call him a bad coach. And it's fine. Because some think he's a great coach because of the philosophy and the influence that he's had. Because of the impact he's had in the lives of many players, many coaches. He has a complete coaching tree that if you even want to add to it, Mauricio Pochettino, for those of you in the United States, he's part of that directly, indirectly, although he was coached by Marcelo Bielsa both at the national team level and when he started his career at Newell's. So all of this being said is that people in Uruguay knew what they were getting into. He was going to clean house. There needed to be a massive cleaning of players. There needed to be, because the generation that was there was long in the tooth. The ones that were coming up were asking for time. They weren't getting that time. They weren't getting the opportunities. And the few opportunities they get, well, they seemed erratic. They start getting the opportunities under Marcelo Bielsa. They end up getting several players that were veterans that had been, played in 1,000 battles with Maestro Tavares, with Diego Alonso, of course, that short period of time that he was there. They were part of that group. And now, of course, there's a new coach that comes in and he wants to set everything up. All of a sudden, everyone loses that protagonism that they had. All of a sudden, Edinson Cavani no longer... And if you want to talk about a person that could bitch about things, it's Edinson Cavani, because of the way he was removed from the national team. He didn't get called, for much less called up. They didn't even tell him, hey, by the way, we don't need you anymore. Bielsa brushed him aside. If there's someone that could bitch about that, it's Edinson Cavani. Fairly, unfairly, that was unfair. Because at least he should have gotten a tribute as well, much less Luis Suárez. I mean, obviously, Luis Suárez deserved every single accolade and every single tribute and every single moment that he had the opportunity of sharing with the Uruguayan national team, especially that last match. But so did Edinson Cavani. Because one couldn't have been without the other. Plain and simple. Now, I kind of digress in all of that. When Bielsa comes in, Darwin Núñez all of a sudden becomes the man. And it's fine. He's playing at Liverpool. He's had his moments, streaky, but he embodies everything that he's looking for from a number 9 and what a number 9 needs to do under his system. Luis Suárez wasn't that. Luis Suárez wasn't that anymore. Because Luis Suárez was basically running on one leg. Luis Suárez is basically playing on one leg. And many in MLS say, oh, but no. He's almost scored 20 goals in MLS hopping on one leg. He played very well in Brazil and was one of the best offensive players. It shows you how good a player he is. That's what I'm trying to say. But there's certain things you can't ask him to track back and defend. You can't ask him to run down, the opposition. You can't ask him to do that at this stage of his career. It's just not feasible. He cannot do that. He might be able to do it one game, but then he's out 3. He can't do it anymore. So under Bielsa, everybody has to run. And not only that, he also saw his influence diminished with this new batch of players. A newer generation of players, younger players. Now, do they admire him? Do they revere him? Do they respect? Absolutely they do. But within the group, he no longer had the influence that he did with the previous generation as one of the leaders of the squad. There's no doubt about it. That's where he got upset. When he didn't get called up, he'd get upset. The few times I saw him, he was upset. The few times that people would talk about him, he'd get upset. My question is, if he was such a leader, if he was such a leader within this group, and he was seeing injustices and he was seeing things that weren't fair, why wasn't he speaking up? You know, he was talking about he was talking about, or one of the phrases said, I didn't say anything in order to maintain the cordiality, maintain a good sense of good working relationship within the team during Copa America. But then you leave all this? Oh, that's fine now, right? Oh, of course. You're already retired from the national team, so who gives a shit what ends up happening inside that dressing room now? I threw the grenade. I'm not in there. That's where one has the problem. That's where one has the issue with Luis Suárez. Now, when it comes to Bielsa, if there was bad treatment, he needs to be also meant. But when Luis Suárez was also mentioning, he doesn't respect the players, he doesn't. Guess who put his ass on the line at a press conference, calling CONMEBOL basically corrupt, talking about FIFA-gate in the United States, talking about the injustices that are made in football, talking about the injustices in football to players, and defending his team after an incident in Charlotte. So, I mean, actions sometimes do speak louder than words. Let's not kid ourselves. And there were more, he said, no, but he doesn't want there's videos of Marcelo Bielsa with fans in New Jersey. There's videos of Marcelo Bielsa in South Florida with fans. So don't tell me that he wasn't allowing you. Maybe at that moment, hey, let's not rush because we have to go do something. We have to go be at a certain place. Maybe that's the case. But if you're telling me that he completely wanted you to shut out the fans, I call bullshit on that. Because there were a lot of times that Bielsa was out there taking photos himself with the fans and with the players. I don't know, players, with fans and many others out there. And some players were as well. Some fans here in South Florida, when they were up in Boca Raton, they were meeting up with fans. So don't tell me that all of a sudden Marcelo Bielsa was saying no. He was. There's video of it. It's not me trying to defend Marcelo Bielsa. It's the videos out there. Because if then I said no, somebody would say, hey, by the way, what's this? That he wouldn't talk to the players. That he'd have the players separate from the staff. That I don't know. That I'm not 100% sure of. That other players have to come out and say. You know, Federico Valverde's talked about, how much of an integral part Marcelo Bielsa is. Darwin Núñez has talked about how integral Marcelo Bielsa's been. So, why isn't anyone going out to his defense too, or any of the players within the national team coming out to his defense? I'm talking about Luis Suárez's defense. I don't think that Marcelo Bielsa needs defending. And that's why I'm not defending him. I'm just pointing things out. Those are things and little details that Luis Suárez also has forgotten because, as I said before, he's lost that influence. And also he's retired now from the national team, so why should it matter? But, again, he has had friends in media that have helped kind of divulge this. Keep in mind, there's a lot of people in media in Uruguay that do not like Marcelo Bielsa. Again, there's not a defense of him. I'm just giving you facts. Because when Bielsa came first, many were criticizing him. There were many journalists that went after him. Of course, when the results have gone his way, there's not very much that they can go argue. Now, if things start going to hell in a handbasket, that's when they're going to start, coming out again. To me, this looks like a very big operation. To me. If you start asking me that. Anyway. That's another drama for another time. And I think if this does spill over, Bielsa will come out and start setting things straight. He usually tends to have a lot of receipts. And this is not confusing, and this shouldn't diminish Luis Suárez in terms of the player that he is or the player that he was more than anything else. But it also has to talk about what he started meaning to the national team within the national team. Now, what it means to Uruguayans is a completely different thing. What he's meaning to this generation is like, hey, you know what? He's throwing a bomb in our dressing room, and there's nothing we can do about it. Because if we come out and defend, then we're just because we're manipulated. If we come out and criticize, then we end up getting at risk of making things even worse within the dressing room. So it's kind of a catch-22 for the players inside that dressing room right now to see what ends up happening. The only thing they can do is brush it aside and produce. We'll see if they do that, because they have a pretty tough FIFA International date coming up in the next couple of months. So guys, I'll talk to you soon. It's been a pleasure.